We are all hurting after that ugly thrashing yesterday as the San Francisco 49ers were just embarrassed by the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to get through it together. Coming up on today's show, wide receiver trade targets after the Brandon Aiyuk injury. If San Francisco wants to deal for a wide receiver, a lot of players at that position could be available, and we're going to go through some popular names that a lot of you are fans of. Also, the back end of the show, latest Christian McCaffrey injury update. When is he going to come back? What does his rehab process look like right now? First, let's reach our goal. As you can see here on the largest independently run Niners channel on YouTube, we're 341 people away from 147,000 subscribers. This is a Niners show for all types of people all across America and worldwide. So I encourage you to hit that subscribe button. And can we get to that new milestone today? If you want Niners shows that are insightful, informative, entertaining, thought-provoking, where you have a voice, join the movement, hit that subscribe button, and let's talk some Niners right now. I'm Chase Sr. Welcome into the show. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports. Win or lose, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, I greatly appreciate all of you for making today's show a part of your day. And let's start off on an unfortunate note. A brutal blow for this Niners offense and team yesterday, and you thought the loss was bad. The injury news to Brandon Aiyuk could be worse. San Francisco fears that Aiyuk may have suffered a torn ACL during that Sunday defeat. And it was on a play where Aiyuk made a nice contested catch and then took a huge hit to his knee and hip area. And here is a close-up of that image. You can shield your eyes if you want, but the context here obviously important. And as he takes that hit to his lower half, you can see the knee bend inward. It's not supposed to do that. And then Aiyuk did get off the field and walk to the blue medical tent, but then he was carted off the field into the locker room. A lot of teams are doing that nowadays because they'll walk from the field to the MRI X-ray room and to the locker room. It's a long one, so why risk further injury? But you can see Aiyuk on the cart during the Fox broadcast pointing to his right knee. Now we have a flurry of tweets from a couple of different doctors who specialize in these football injuries and have made a career out of watching NFL games and then providing injury news for betting implications, fantasy football teams. And there seems to be a consistent theme here among all of these doctors, that the Aiyuk injury is severe and it's not good. And we'll hear later from Kyle Shanahan the true extent of the injury. Dr. Jesse Morse, right knee injury. He thinks it could be an MCL sprain, bone bruise, possible PCL, possible ACL. Let's hope that he's flexible. He said the exam is benign and somehow he got lucky. This one could go either way. Jeff Mueller, friend of the show, Brandon Aiyuk, concerned for significant right knee injury, ACL, MCL. So that differs from what Jesse Moore said. And then Dr. David Chow, his company and his business, Sports Injury Central, and Dr. David Chow fears it's an ACL as well, with this tweet here. By video, Brandon Aiyuk suffered a significant injury to his right knee with some likely ligament damage. The worry is for an MCL tear, potential bone bruise injury, unlikely to return today, IR potential pending MRI to determine severity. Now, oftentimes when doctors are able to feel that ACL, they know sometimes right away what the injury is. What's interesting is that you have these doctors theorizing ACL, MCL, other ligament damage, but then from head coach Kyle Shanahan, he got word from the doctors on the team and from the training staff that they fear it could be an ACL injury. What is going to determine it specifically is an MRI. You can get an X-ray all you want. That's for bones. MRI is for ligament damage. And Brandon Aiyuk undergoing further testing probably last night, today, and we'll get that confirmed diagnosis hopefully later on today. And when that happens, we'll be sure to let you know. As part of this injury, we now have to have a conversation. Do the 49ers have to make a move? Are they going to stand pat with some of the receivers on their team? after getting embarrassed by Kansas City? Do they even believe that they are a playoff and Super Bowl contender? And if they think that the answer is no, we can't compete for a Super Bowl, they'll probably stand pat and not make any injuries. If they do want to make a move for a wide receiver, here are 10 wide receiver trade targets, and we'll go through some of these players specifically here as far as my favorites. No particular order here. T. Higgins of the Cincinnati Bengals, DeAndre Hopkins of the Tennessee Titans, Dontavian Wicks of the Green Bay Packers, Deontay Johnson of the Carolina Panthers, Adam Thielen of the Carolina Panthers, Darius Slayton, New York Giants, Mike Williams and Garrett Wilson of the New York Jets, Cooper Kupp of the Los Angeles Rams, and Robert Woods of Houston. The constant and consistent theme among those players, a lot of those players play on teams who are out of playoff contention outside of really Cincinnati, and those teams could be sellers instead of buyers when we approach the November 5th NFL trade deadline. So there are all types of different options available as far as talent level, age, size, diversity to their route tree, the types of game that they possess as far as wide receivers go, but also even with Aiyuk out, the 49ers are also still pretty deep at the wide receiver spot. Like, this is a pretty good receiver core here. Deebo Samuel has been rumored to be a trade target. That was from Diana Rossini of The Athletic, NFL Insider, going into the weekend. But after the Aiyuk injury, he's probably safe to be on this team. Jawan Jennings believed to be back against the Dallas Cowboys coming up week 8. And he has really emerged, and he can be that outside guy. You have two youngsters in Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing, who the early returns from yesterday, not bad. Jacob Cowing caught the long ball from Brock Purdy. He caught that bubble screen, picked up some yak. Still need to see Ricky Pearsall get acclimated a little bit more, but he had a great week of practice. And, I mean, the dude got shot at the start of September, so you can't expect him to be fully ready to go after not partaking in a lot of training camp practices and no games in the preseason. And then you have Ronnie Bell, who impressed as a rookie during preseason last year and then dropped multiple passes in that critical loss against the Los Angeles Rams. This is today's poll question. I want to hear from you. After the Brandon Aiyuk injury, do the Niners need to trade for a wideout? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Of course, this is even more brutal for San Francisco because they just signed Aiyuk to that contract extension. Before we get to my favorite players, shout out to PrizePicks for making today's Niners Report possible. It's the best daily fantasy sports app in the game with over 10 million active members, and it's daily fantasy sports made easy. All you do is pick 2 or more players. You choose more or less on their projected stats, and you're guaranteed to win some big-time money. You can pick players of different teams and pick players of different sports for your PrizePicks lineup. And right now, you get $50 when you play $5. If you go to prizepicks.com/CLNS, you don't even need to you don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So again, prizepicks.com/CLNS, you use the code CLNS, and you get $50 when you play 5. I love PrizePicks too because it's so easy to use. It makes game days a lot more fun, but also they have so many great specials. For instance, Anthony Edwards, more than a half point on opening night of the basketball season. He needs 1 free throw or a bucket for you to get an automatic win. Some other picks that we like going into some Monday Night Football action, 2 games on the slate. Derrick Henry, more than 86.5 rushing yards against the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield, more than 1.5 passing touchdowns against Baltimore. And then Justin Herbert, more than 197.5 passing yards against the Arizona Cardinals. So pick more, pick less. Run your game with PrizePicks. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. As far as the back end of the show, after the Brandon Aiyuk injury, here are my top wide receiver trade targets for San Francisco if they decide to make a move, and they could decide to not make a move because their receiver core is pretty good. T. Higgins would be my top overall choice. I really like the game of Garrett Wilson of the New York Jets. Cooper Kupp is a name that's been floated in trade discussions because the Rams have struggled up to this point, but it's a division rival. Dontavian Wicks is a young player who I think is only scratching the surface of what he could become. And then you have the veteran in DeAndre Hopkins. For these 5 players, Higgins, he's 25, he's tall, he's a complete wide receiver. I'd put him in the elite category, even though he plays alongside Jamar Chase. He is in a contract year, so it could be a rental or you have to pay him. Unlikely after the Niners paid Brandon Aiyuk. For Garrett Wilson, teams have been calling the Jets after the Davante Adams trade. Last year, he had more than 1,000 receiving yards with awful quarterback play. He's a complete wideout. He's slippery, and his nickname is Gumpy. So he is a really good athlete who's very difficult to defend. He can play inside, outside. Cooper Kupp, unlikely because the Rams aren't going to give him to the Niners inside this division, but an excellent player. The concerns there, very injury prone. For Wicks, enormous potential. He's only 23 years old. He's kind of hidden and not talked about a lot on that Packers team because they're 4 wide receivers deep, and they have 2 really good tight ends and a good running game. And then DeAndre Hopkins. I know he's older. I know his production has gone down the last couple of years, but he's had some awful quarterback play. He has never been a twitched up, gaining separation speedster at that wide receiver spot. He's physical, he can go up and get it, and he wins a lot of 50-50 balls. For T. Higgins, the production has been there. Last 4 years, he has been an excellent player alongside Jamar Chase. Now, the last 2 years, he's been banged up a little bit, banged up to start this year. Last year played 12 games, but when he's healthy, 2021, 2022, more than 1,000 yards. For Garrett Wilson, look at what he did last year with the likes of Zach Wilson throwing him the football. 147 targets, 83 catches, 1,100 yards. He emerges now after the Davante Adams trade as one of the top number 2 wide receivers in the game. But with the Jets losing on Sunday Night Football to Pittsburgh, could New York decide to sell? After last week, they just went all in. In 2023, 2024, you see the great production there for Garrett Wilson. Again, last 2 years, he's had awful quarterback play. He's still surpassed 1,000 yards, and this year through 7 games, he's still on pace for another 1,000-yard season. He's been very, very productive. The issue with Cooper Kupp, his games played by a year. 2022, 9. 2023, 12. 2024, only 2. He is expected to come back for the Rams under Sean McVay, taking some passes from Matthew Stafford on Thursday Night Football. For Wicks, maybe more of an unknown commodity compared to some of these other players. Last year, 38 targets, 14 catches, 181 yards, 12.9 yards per catch. That's this year in 7 games played. And last year, I thought he was pretty good during his rookie campaign. But this is a player who I think could really emerge with other complementary pieces around him, with good quarterback play, and with the really good head coach in Kyle Shanahan, even though the play calling, play designs this year have been lackluster under Kyle Shanahan. And then there's DeAndre Hopkins. So DeAndre Hopkins, this generation, he's been one of the top wide receivers in the game. As far as production, it has been a little while since he's put up great numbers, right? Especially on a consistent basis. But in 2023, unknown commodity because he played for an awful team, but he still had more than 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, 137 targets, and 75 catches. The 2 years before that, a combined 19 games played. This year, again, bad quarterback play, right? Will Levis stinks. Mason Rudolph got the start on Sunday for Tennessee. 21 targets, 15 catches, 173 yards, and a touchdown. If you want to give me a follow on X and Instagram, by the way, you can find me there at Chase_Senior. Past 14,000 followers on X, more than 33,000 followers on IG. A lot of short-form Niners content that I put up over on those pages, in addition to the long-form content here on this show. Let's round out with the latest Christian McCaffrey injury update. He's been doing some on-field work. He's ramping up toward a return. He's doing some sprinting on grass. John Lynch said going into the weekend that he's progressing very, very well and that he's doing very, very well. And then Ian Rappaport this morning on NFL Network with this update. The Niners play the Cowboys, he said, on Sunday. Christian McCaffrey not expected to be available for that game. Still trying to ramp up. Then the Niners have a bye. My understanding this whole time has been the target for McCaffrey early November. The first day of early November, which is November 3rd, they're on a bye. So November 10th is the first time we may see Christian McCaffrey. He has been running on flat ground. He's been ramping up. From my understanding, there hasn't been anything bad with his rehab. There's really nothing pessimistic here. As of right now, he is all systems go. So if that proceeds, if that continues in this direction, then we could see him November 10th for the San Francisco 49ers. Niners need him badly. As far as running the ball, as far as the pass game, they could really use Christian McCaffrey in the red zone. The lack of creativity from Shanahan's play calling, the offensive line protection, the offensive line run blocking, everything in the red area has been terrible and hard to watch, frankly. And once again, we saw those struggles doom San Francisco. And then yesterday, Brock Purdy, 3 turnovers on the Chiefs side of the field. Just can't happen. Now, this is pretty interesting. On the community tab of the YouTube channel, I posed this question last night as I was letting my thoughts fester, thinking about this game on my couch, watching the NLCS between the Dodgers and the Mets. Dodgers headed to the World Series to take on the New York Yankees. I was also watching Jets Steelers, and I posed this question on the community tab here. Is the Niners season over after that embarrassing loss to the Chiefs? 5,000 votes, 63% yes, because the Niners not the same team as last year. I want you to share your thoughts with me down in the comment section pertaining to that question. As always, thank you so much for supporting the show and watching the show. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Once we get that Brandon Aiyuk update, we'll pass along that information here on the show, and we'll bring you more content later on today. So be on the lookout for it.